I can't understand why the Sea-Doos are so popular. Aside from their marketing, what's the overwhelming popularity? I'm only speaking about RXTX and RXPX versus, say, an Ultra 310, which I have. Well, first, there's a lot of ingredients to that soup. Sea-Doo has a very good dealer network. And they have a very good model for encouraging dealers to sell their product. And they're very engaged with it. And for the last 15 to 20 years, Kawasaki's been very laissez-faire with their domestic dealer market. And they have not been aggressive when it comes to getting dealerships to carry their product, to sell their product, to push their product. And so when a customer comes in, a customer can be swayed. I've swayed people left, right, and center just by giving a decent argument. If I give a halfway decent argument, people will go, oh, well, okay, maybe I'll consider something else. And if a dealer is being encouraged to push, say, a Sea-Doo over a Kawasaki, they're going to steer you towards that product again and again and again. And that's part of the incentive program. And there's all sorts of incentive programs to encourage dealerships to move product. And then that snowballs. So the more sales they make, the more money they can put into advertising, the more money they can put into putting that product in front of your face. And then bang, 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 it keeps snowballing to the fact that Florida is demonstrably Sea-Doo country. And you're like, oh, well, holy crap. My wife grew up in Alabama, in Birmingham, Alabama. She grew up calling it sea-dooing. She goes, hey, do you want to go sea-dooing? She didn't say, hey, do you want to go jet skiing? She would say, let's go sea-dooing as an adjective. Or it's a verb, excuse me, as a verb. And I was like, who says that? And apparently a lot of people in the South say that. And I just had no idea. Now, what do you think, Greg? As you take a drink of water.
Yeah. Well, Sea-Doo's got really good marketing for one, as your comment states, probably the best. But, I don't know. I think it's just the brand reputation that really keeps Sea-Doo at the top spot. I think the Yamaha hulls perform the best, but believe it or not, and I came to this realization recently, and this might have something to do with it, but the Sea-Doo engine, the 1603 and the 1600 and 1503, they are bulletproof. So you do a few little things, obvious maintenance, like check your coolant lines, and you're not going to have an issue with it. They're really bulletproof engines, and I think Sea-Doo doesn't get enough comments about that.
That's really interesting. That is really interesting because for the longest time, I was to this day, I'll still be very critical of the plasma coating in the cylinders.
Right. Okay. So,
okay.
I'll let you finish.
No. Go ahead.
So the plasma coating, it's excellent until you overheat it or damage something else and ruin the coating. So then you've got a mess on your hands.
Okay.
But if you check your coolant lines, you don't blow a coolant line off while you're running, your motor's not going to overheat. And chances of you having an issue with that, you're probably not going to.
Interesting, because a lot of I dropped a cylinder and I only had maybe 30 hours on
the unit
that I had.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure they have some duds.
Well, it was the first year. Okay, so it was a 2018 silver RXTX 300. I had about 28 hours on it, and we had put a scom on it, and I went out the second or third time with the scom, and it was a cool morning. It wasn't cold, but it was cooler, and I had maybe gone half a mile, and that engine dropped and went into limp mode instantaneously.
Okay.
And I lost all compression on the number 2 cylinder. So I brought it home and I got on the horn with your dad and I got on the horn with Jesus. And your dad was like, "Hey, listen, do you have an endoscope?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And we went in there, and the number 2 cylinder, the valves look good, but I thought maybe I dropped the valve. First, I was like, "Oh man, I think I heard a valve." And he goes, "No, no, no, hold on." And I endoscoped it, and it had almost completely glazed one half of that sleeve, or of that cylinder. I shouldn't say sleeve. It had just burned it. It had just burned that plasma coating right off. And he's like, "Yep, it's that garbage plasma coating."
I wonder if
And
they had a dud year, the first year that they did it. It was just,
right,
first year anything is usually not too great.
especially with BRP kind of lets the customer for the first couple of years be the guinea pigs.
Right, right. Well, but something to counter that. So 2, 3 weeks ago, I take my Sea-Doo out, 15-mile-an-hour winds on the lake, and I'm not going out for a nice cruise. Beating the hull to death to the point where I think, I might end up like the guy in Thailand and split this thing in half. But
Right.
for an entire tank of gas, 80% of that was spent at 9,000 RPM or above, and
Huh.
not a single hiccup.
That's
And
great.
that's not the only time that I've done that. So this highly modified engine pushing the limits farther than what you probably should as far as the runtime at that RPM level, and no issues. Starts right up, has perfect compression every time I ride it. So just for that fact alone, I'm very impressed with the Sea-Doo motors.
Okay. Now that's especially coming from the longest time, father and son were big proponents of the SVHOs.
Yeah,
And, I my understanding was that it was the Yamaha engine that was just it was the big motor to go with. And then I got hip to the fact, well, obviously timing chains in 14 and 15, they had to fix the timing chains because they were snapping chains. Um, there was some cracking around the number 2 and number 3 spark plugs.
hmm
My understanding was because the heat, it would heat soak and it would weaken because it was a thin casting and they would split
right.
there. And it was just the casting in between the spark plug perch and then that ran to one of the intake valves or one of the exhaust valves. They would split there, and some Yamaha guys were going to correct me on that one. But I don't know of any other failures with the motors that were kind of habitual failures.
So the SVHO motor, you're not going to beat the power and torque. So
Right.
my CD's got every bolt-on part I could throw at it, and it's not even comparing to a stage 2 SVHO by several miles an hour, and then it gets there a lot slower.
Okay.
Um, but the SVHO, they've got some issues that I think they need to address. It's more of a design flaw.
Oh,
It's not that it's a bad thing. Uh, for instance, the intake manifold upgrade, the ribbon delete that people like to call it. If
right.
you don't do that to the 2018 and plus intake manifold, it's you're asking for trouble because it's not a
Right. But is that a design flaw or is that
yeah.
it,
So
I wouldn't call it a design flaw as much as I would call it a restrictor.
no,
If
it's 100% a design flaw. Um, so you've got the ribbon sitting in the intake manifold like this, right? It's just a
oh yeah,
circular
and it
piece.
moves.
Yeah. And then they have one little lip sitting on it right here that holds it in. The rest of it, it has nothing supporting it. So what happens is it turns sideways over time and pushes through. It'll go
Okay.
into that intake manifold. But around it, there's a rubber gasket. And what happened to mine, the rubber gasket, it twisted like that. The rubber gasket came off of it, and the engine processed the gasket, and
Oh,
caused a drop valve.
holy
So
crap.
yeah, I
It
would
it
definitely,
inhaled that gasket.
yeah, I would consider
Okay.
that a design flaw.
That is a design flaw.
Yeah. If you had
That is
the
a
lip
design
that
flaw.
holds it go all the way around, or even just on the opposite side, it can never turn sideways and pull out. So
That's interesting. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, I knew that there was instances of that flame arrestor tilting, but I did not know that it was. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out. This clip was taken from our weekly podcast that we record here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to watch the whole video, you can go to the Watercraft Journal's YouTube channel, go to playlists, and then click on live sessions. You're going to see it there. Otherwise, go ahead and leave a like, a comment, and definitely subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow. And again, thanks again for watching our videos, and we hope to see you soon.